Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Safer Internet Day session today. My name is Sharon Sanders. I lead the Digital Inclusion Programme for Bradford District, and I'm delighted to invite you here and to see and share all the information that we have for you today. Just a few housekeeping points. Other than presenters, people's cameras and microphones will be off. And obviously, given the time of day here, that helps everybody if you're actually in a position where you're having some lunch whilst you're listening to us. So thank you very much. We have a packed agenda today, so I do want to keep to time. We will be coming to questions at the end. So if you have any questions that you'd like to raise, please put them into the chat and we can pick them up at the end of the session. It is about us being able to answer your questions and to help you to engage in what is a very, very important topic, certainly at the moment, with regard to all the news around AI and the challenges that we have around fake news within communities. So really, really excited to have you all here. I can see that the numbers are coming in as I'm speaking. So before I move on to our first presenter, I'll just wait a little minute until some others have joined on, because I can see that they're coming in at the moment. I hope that you find the session helpful. I'm sure you will. It is recorded and we will be sharing the recording after this session, along with any slide packs for those of you who are interested in reviewing those. They will also include contact information so that you can get hold of any of us if you'd like to explore the topic further and how we can help you. So thank you very much for that. Okay, so our running order in the first half, which takes us up to 10 to 2, when we will have a comfort break until 2 p.m, will be my colleague Danielle King, who is Prevent Coordinator at Bradford Council. She'll talk to you about fake news. I'll then be speaking about the digital divide and how we're bridging that in Bradford. And then Ian Brewer will be talking to you about safe digital community banking. Okay, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Danielle King. Thank you, Danielle.
Slideshow on properly, and hopefully we can all see that there. So my name's Danielle King. I'm the Prevent Coordinator for the local authority for Bradford and District, and today I'm going to be doing a session on spotting the signs of fake news. So before we start, I thought I would just define the two aspects which make up fake news. So the first is misinformation. So this is untrue information created and shared as if it was true. So there isn't any intention to cause any harm, but it can, as we'll see in a second when I give you an example. It tends to be rumour and gossip, usually people sharing unverified stories or information or images without really understanding that they are misleading or untrue. And in a lot of cases, people do it because they think that they're doing a favour, as you'll see by the first example that I'm going to show you. The next is disinformation, and this is untrue information that is created and shared in order to deceive or harm a person or an organisation or a social group. It's created by groups and countries and people, usually with their own agenda to further their own aims. And they often use misleading stories and information or images on purpose. And they're usually fully aware that the information is false or it's been maliciously manipulated. So if I just show you an example here, you can see this first one here, which was, you can see the comments. This happened in January 2023, and it was in Dubai. And a lot of people could feel tremors, basically, when they were at home or they were in their office blocks. They could just feel tremors around them. And a lot of people just made the assumption that this must be an earthquake and put this online. Just felt a minor tremor in Dubai, internet city, anyone else? And it was a huge amount of information which was shared online to say that there'd been an earthquake in Dubai. So this is an example of misinformation, because ultimately these people just wanted to spread the word that they thought that there'd been an earthquake, and they made the assumption that there'd been an earthquake. The reality wasn't actually true, but they didn't mean to cause any harm by it. They just thought they were spreading information. The reality was actually there was some demolition work, some quite substantial demolition works in the centre of Dubai. And once this was going on, it had a big impact in people that were in buildings nearby. Another example is from our own country, and this is during the King's coronation. And somebody put on there something very poetic about a king in a golden coach being driven over a load of potholes filled with wet sand because no one in this country has the money to fix the roads properly. So they made the assumption that where you can see the light brown bits there, that they were potholes that had been filled in so that the horses didn't fall in them and trip up. In actual fact, that wasn't the case. Again, they'd made an assumption, not for any political reason particularly, they just made that assumption. But what it was actually drain holes which were covered to keep the horses safe. So in both of those cases, it's misinformation. Nobody means to cause any harm. They just make assumptions and they just share it. But obviously it's not particularly good. But then we've got some examples here of disinformation, which has been created or shared to deceive or to harm people or organisations. And the first one, the anti-vax movement, created a fake screenshot of a Guardian columnist there, George Monbiot, and this was shared enormously online to try and get the kind of anti-vax message across. But the reality is that this wasn't a column that was actually written, and it was just created by somebody, and they were trying to get that across. So that was an example of disinformation. Another one is from a celebrity column, to get people really just to click on a celebrity column and to get them interested in the stories there, and maybe to get them to sign up for that celebrity column. And it said Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez arguing on the red carpet. So there's a picture there, and it could be taken, I guess, if you looked at that those two people are having an argument. But the reality, and everybody who was actually there, and all the photographers who took the picture, and all the people that were filming, all said that they were just having a conversation. But the angles that were used kind of looked a little bit like it was a bit more heated. And so that was shared online to get people, as clickbait, to get people to click on that column. So it's an example of those two different examples there. Now, fake news can also lead to conspiracy theories. I'm sure that we all know lots and lots of different conspiracy theories that we've probably come up against when we've been clicking online, and even before the online space existed, there were lots of conspiracy theories that were out there. So these are defined by 4 characteristics. So it's usually a group acting in secret to alter institutions or usurp power or hide the truth or gain some utility at the expense of the common good. They will always tell you that you need to blame somebody for something. Usually that people more powerful than us are out to get us, and usually that there's some sort of secret explanation. And as a consequence, we shouldn't do what the politicians or the leaders are telling us to do. Now, conspiracy theories tend to work best and get the most clicks if we are coping with a threat. So you saw a lot of things, a lot of conspiracies around the time of COVID, when the country was dealing with some real difficulties there. Quite often when we feel powerless, or we can't explain what's happening, or we don't like what we're being told to do. So in times when there might be natural disasters or incidents that happen in our society that we can't explain, So we've seen lots and lots over the years, and people click on these because they're exciting and they're different and they're interesting. We like to feel that we know something that other people don't. So conspiracy theories can be very, very popular. But the danger with conspiracy theories is that the more that we click on them, the more that we can convince ourselves and get taken down tunnels, if you like, in the online space, where we get information which reinforces only that conspiracy theory. And it doesn't actually look at all the other different sides to a particular story. It just looks at that particular one. And what happens is it trains our brains only to believe in one side of an argument, and it trains our brains only to believe in something that's interesting, that's different, that's a new way of looking at something. So although they can seem very, very interesting, conspiracy theories can be very dangerous, and we have to be really careful that we don't fall down that trap of clicking on to conspiracy theories. So there's a few examples here of ways in which we can protect ourselves against fake news and the dangers that fake news bring to us. So it can be a great source, the online space, of information, but we have to make sure that we don't just fall for everything that we read. So the first piece of advice I would give you is to look at what is your first reaction. If you read something online and your first reaction is to be incredibly angry or outraged or curious or excited, just check yourself and have a think about that, because misinformation often tries to hijack our rational minds with strong emotional pulls. If you can create a very strong emotional reaction to something, then it's easy to take somebody along with you. So if you read something online that instantly makes you sit up and provokes a very strong reaction, just check yourself and have a look around it, and don't just assume that everything that it says is absolutely true, because often it will be doing that in order to get you on board. And then a good idea is to look at the purpose of what you are reading or watching or hearing. This is an article which appeared in the Telegraph a couple of years ago. Ian McEwan dubious about schools studying his books after he helped some with an essay and got a C+. Have a look at the article that you're reading. Is it a news report or is it an opinion? So it'll be from one side. Is it a column? Is it an advert? Is it satire? In this particular instance, it was satire. This whole article was an interview which was done as a sort of satirical interview, as a comedic piece. So it wasn't intended in this particular example to be taken seriously, and he wasn't making any kind of a statement about the government or the education system or schools or anything like that. He was just having a bit of a laugh with the person who was interviewing him. So just be very careful about the purpose of what you're reading or watching. The other thing to do is also be aware of your own biases. Are your reactions a result of a personal viewpoint, excuse me, or an opinion? So even though it might not always feel comfortable to do so, do try looking at a range of sources to consider other viewpoints. Just because you might have a particular opinion on something and an article appears in the press or in the online space or anything which reinforces that opinion, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's absolutely true just because it agrees with something you believe in. So it's always a good idea to have a look at a range of different sources to consider other viewpoints, and that helps to give you a nice overall balance before you can make a decision. The other thing is to have a look at whether or not or consider the message Is it too perfect? Is it particularly overtly or aggressively partisan? Does it use loaded language, excessive punctuation even, or all capitals for emphasis? That's not necessarily to say if something does, then it can't be true. But often, the way that messages are constructed can reinforce the fact that it's just come from one person or one side, and other sides have not necessarily been consulted. Does it claim to contain a secret or tell you something that the media are covering up or lying about, in which case it might fall into the conspiracy theory point of view? So it's always a good idea to consider the actual message and don't just take it straight as truth. Another good idea is to search for more information. So if something comes up and you think, oh, is that true? Well, look at other news outlets. Are they all reporting the same thing? They might not necessarily be reporting it from the same angle, but are they all looking at that particular story? Because if it is a big story, chances are all news outlets will be reporting it. Have you checked independent fact checkers to see whether or not that could be the case? So there's some examples there: Snopes, Full Fact, BBC News Fact Check, Channel 4 News Fact Check. They're all useful for doing that. Have a look at where and when the information originally appeared. Quite often things can appear in an article, and when you research when that information was first put out there, it can be 10, sometimes 20 years before, and it can have been rejigged for a particular agenda. What's the web domain? Often the name of that can give you an indication as to where it's come from. Can you do an image search? So Google can often find the first time an image was put on the internet. You can then see if it's been altered. So we've seen a lot of examples where images have been altered to get a particular perspective across. So it's a good idea to do that. Now, have a look at how they might be influencing you. Do they present something as the lesser of two evils, so convincing you to make one choice or another when there could be other options? Does it use ambiguous words that can be interpreted in lots of different ways? Do they assert things like a fact, but really it's just a statement that may not be true? Are they trying to influence you to follow a crowd? Do they miss out small facts? Do they blame a group or a person and engage in scapegoating? Do they transfer what you think or feel about one thing onto another thing? Do they make generalizations, making a judgment on something without being able to fully prove it? So if you see statements that do that, it's likely that somebody is trying to influence you and it is fake news. So just to pull it together, ask yourself these 6 critical questions. Who has said it? And look into who has said it. It might not necessarily matter who has said it, but it's a good idea to consider that. What exactly have they said? Is it fact or opinion? Have they left anything out? Where did you see it? Public, private? Did other people have a chance to get involved? When did they say it? Was it before or after an event or during? Why might somebody have said it, and where might they come from? What might be their intent? And how have they said it? Were they particularly angry? Did they write it? Did they speak it? Could you understand it all? So it's a good idea to ask yourself those critical questions before making an assumption. So I think the most important thing is that you don't have to react to something immediately when you see it online or rush to respond. You have the freedom to choose how you do react. So if you feel pressure, if you're rushed and busy and stressed, take a step back. You don't have to. Take a breath. Consider what you're seeing or being told. Think about what you're seeing. How might somebody else might respond to it? Could sharing it have consequences? I think that one's really, really important. Do you need to put things into context, add a message, or warn about or change something? So I think the most important aspect of this is basically just because you see something online in print, just because it looks like it could have some elements of truth in it, just because there might be a picture there or bold words or statements that you're interested in and you might want to click on, doesn't mean it's true, and sharing it could have consequences. So do be careful with what you do see online so that we don't get drawn in by fake news. And I'd just like to leave us with the words of Abraham Lincoln. Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. Thank you very much. And I'll now go on to the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. That was great. Certainly some food for thought there and some really good examples of what that looks like within our lives. I think we've all seen examples of that, and that point about giving yourself time to think before you respond, because in a digital world, it's often very fast paced and we feel as if we should respond when actually that isn't always the best thing to do. So thank you for that. Okay, everyone, so I'm going to talk to you now about the digital inclusion programme in Bradford District and what we're doing. So I will share my screen. Joys of technology. Just bear with me. There we go. Okay, so my name's Sharon Sanders. I'm the Digital Inclusion Programme Manager for the Bradford District Digital Inclusion Programme, and I'm going to talk to you about what that is and what that means. I'm sure you're all aware that, you know, that there is an issue with people's ability to be able to engage in the digital world. And so the focus of the programme is literally, how do we support citizens of Bradford District to ensure that they won't be excluded from having access to digital devices, connectivity, and the skills to improve them in their livelihoods. So that might be, how do I use the internet to apply for work, to apply for a job, to apply for housing, that sort of thing. So the approach that we're taking in Bradford is aligned to what the wider West Yorkshire approach is, which is looking at how do we do this at a place-based level. At the end of the day, the communities themselves and the organisations and people within those communities understand what their challenges are around being able to engage in the digital world. And so the process that we have in place means that we are ensuring that we're working in partnership with the organisations that sit within those areas. So, example, GP practices, voluntary community sector organisations, libraries, that we're having conversations with people, not just about digital, but basically digital as part of their wider life. So how does digital enable them to make improvements in their life and to go after and achieve the goals and ambitions that they have, whether that's around employment, education, moving home, improving their health through engaging with their GP practices and their hospitals. That's what it's about. So it's what motivates the individual within the community to want to be digitally included, and how can we support them to do that? Now, we have two aspects to this. One is, what's the support available for individuals across the district? I've already said that our voluntary and community sector organisations are part of that. They're critical organisations within the district, and they are trusted organisations. So they're often places where people can access technology or Wi-Fi or skills. Okay, so we have our family hubs. Family hubs are where families go for support, for play, for health. We have libraries. We have information around a reduced rate for the internet, or how you can get that free from some providers. We work with DWP around access to work. And we have a great organisation in Bradford called Solidaritech, and they repurpose devices for our asylum seeker refugee population. So access to technology, Wi-Fi and devices is one aspect that's available. The other thing is digital skills support. So what's around for individuals to help with that? Lots of organisations run digital drop-in sessions in their community groups, in the libraries. There are also adult learning sessions available. Often they include English as a second language. Bradford has a very diverse range of communities, and there are many languages spoken across the district, so it's really important that that is factored in. There's also help via telephone helplines. So Vodafone, for example, run a digital skills helpline. Good Things Foundation, great organisation that champions the cause of digital inclusion. They have a platform called Learn My Way, which is a basic digital skills learning platform that anyone can access. Very conscious that not everybody is able to be out and about. So how do we support perhaps some of our older population or disabled population to be engaged in the digital world? And a great example of how that is done is via an organisation that's a national organisation called AbilityNet. And their individuals will come out and visit people in their homes and support them. And they also have a helpline. We also have the benefit of an organisation called Worth Connecting, which supports people in their home age 55 plus. So there's quite a lot of things happening across the district that supports individuals. There's also information available online, and that might sound counterintuitive because we're talking about helping people to be digitally included, and often they're people who don't have online access. But those who are supporting them, including organisations, can actually get access to this help online for them. So the Digital Unite platform, there are 400 user guides on there to help people from everything to how do I, turn my phone on and work it, to how can I apply for a job using a job platform. There's free training from IBM's Skills Build. Now, this platform actually provides you with digital badges. I myself have just done a course around AI within that, but it also includes things like preparing for interview, preparing a CV, what does project-based working look like? And what that does is those digital badges are valid within the organisations at which they will be applying for work. So it's a really, really good opportunity to acquire those skills. Very similar situation there with Accenture around their digital skills platform. There are also free courses in a platform called England Online for 19 years and upwards. And there's also a YouTube Essential Digital Skills platform. So there are lots of free resources there. So how can organisations help? So doing a lot of work with organisations across the Bradford district. And my digital inclusion officer is working closely with these organisations. One of the things we're doing is encourage them to register with Good Things Foundation, and this is available for all for the whole of England. So you can register with them as part of their network. That will give you access to free SIM cards you can give to people who you're supporting to be digitally included, devices for individuals, grant funding opportunities, so an opportunity to secure funding to help with digital inclusion, and again, access to the Learn My Way platform, which is really, really, really helpful. We have something called Digital Friends Training in Bradford. So you may have heard the term Digital Champion. We feel that feels a little bit hard. So we've reframed that and called it Digital Friends. And what we're doing is we're training staff within organisations, volunteers, social prescribers, etc., how to support people to be digitally included. And we give them access to tips and tools, techniques and guidance as to how to meet people where they're at. Because this isn't about us saying to people, you have to be digitally included. What we're saying is, how can we help these people to be involved in the digital world around the things that matter to them? Whether that, as I've said earlier, is employment, being able to engage with their hospital more effectively, catching up with friends and families using WhatsApp, things like that. So it's literally how we support people to access that support for their lives. We also have our digital friends aligned to an offer which is called Citizen Coin. And what you do is you earn coins for each interaction that you have, and those coins can be spent within organisations across where you live. And that means you get reduction on services, which is a really, really good way. Plus, it also gives you a social CV. So if you're trying to build up your CV opportunities and you're a volunteer, it actually documents everything you've done, and that helps individuals as well as the organisation. The other thing that I've been doing is through social value within contracts with suppliers that we have. I've been providing Chromebooks and iPads right into organisations themselves so that they can help people to come in and use those devices. I also have devices available that can be given out to individuals within communities via the organisations they're working with. And I'm more than happy to talk to people about that in more detail if you have an interest. We also have given away 5 years worth of free broadband connections from Virgin Media to 15 organisations so far. We have 5 more that we need to find across the district to allocate that. And that means that organisation can use that internet connection for themselves, but equally they're using it to support their customers, their patients, their service users to be more digitally engaged, which is great. My digital inclusion officer offers support by working with organisations to develop digital drop-in sessions, and will support the staff to be able to maintain those beyond her time with them, as well as supporting around funding opportunities and applications. And all those things together really combine what that help looks like. And it's really important that we are working together to actually reduce the digital divide. So I'm really keen to work with anybody in the Bradford district who would like to work with me to reduce that digital divide. And I'm sure there are some projects that we could work up that would enable you to access the devices, etc. In fact, we've just gone out this week with a grant funding opportunity across social media for organisations across the Bradford district to have access to grant funding for between £1,000 to £5,000 per organisation. So keep your eyes open for that. If you can't find it, please email me. I'm happy to send you the information. So it's all about working together to reduce the digital divide. By doing this, we're supporting people to understand where some of the risks are that Danielle was just speaking about, and also where lots of the opportunities are around technology to improve people's lives. So hopefully that's been of help to you. And I'm happy to talk to you after this session at any time. Okay, so we're moving nicely through this. I'm now going to hand over to Ian Brewer to talk about safe digital community banking. And Ian has lots of opportunities to provide you with access to that and top tips. So thank you, Ian, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Sharon. I really do appreciate all our speakers that have come on today. Registration-wise, we actually hit 250 registrations. So thank you for everyone being on here, circulating it. I'm always aware that some people just book on in order to get the recordings and the slideshows and the contacts. So everything will be uploaded to our website, and a link will be sent out through Eventbrite in the next day or so. So thank you again, Sharon, for that great introduction, and I'll just pop into my slideshow. Excellent. If I just take that and put that back to there. Stop sharing. Back to sharing. Excellent, wonderful. Well, thank you again for that. And this really came out of the fact that we used to do Safer Internet Day pre-pandemic, and people like Danielle I've worked with before. After the pandemic and just thinking about Safer Internet Day, especially with AI coming on stream, there was a real appetite between Kirklees Council and Bradford Council to have another webinar type that we've got going on here. So here. So meet my team. So my name is Brewer, as I said. I'm actually been working with Bradford District Credit Union since 2016. I have an international community development background, India, Nepal, Bangladesh and South Africa. Before moving here to Bradford about 20 odd years ago, ran community centres for a bit until I got this job in 2016, which really brought together my community development background and my 7 years experience at HSBC to help people understand financial inclusion. So I also manage our employee engagement. We have 34 payroll partners. Siobhan Graham is my development officer, who has a background in the NHS and works on our projects. And then Yanka Bravkova is our marketing apprentice who works with me on the marketing scene. So where did Bradford Credit Union come from? A little bit of our history. If you go back to the early 90s, the recession of the early 90s meant that staff at Bradford Council couldn't get loans from their banks due to the credit crunch. They were talking to Bradford Council HR about this, and the council decided to set up its own credit union for staff. And all that meant was that staff could save into a pot and then borrow out of the same pot. 2005, all the housing stock was moved over to In Communities, which was a new company back at the time. Staff also wanted a credit union back then. So in 2005, we became a community-wide credit union. But then in 2016, two major things happened. First was that we were one of the first to adopt online banking. And we now have a smartphone app. So if you go into your app store and you look for Bradford Credit Union, you'll find our app there. And that means that you can check your balance and move your money out of your account. Okay. If you cast your mind back, you may remember the rise of the loan shark and the payday lender. Companies like Wonga were setting up, and they were making extraordinarily high amounts of money out of people wanting to borrow short term. So council decided they wanted a financial inclusion officer, as it was known back then. That's when I joined the credit union in order to help that grow and get that information out. In 2019, the government came to us and said, look, Kirklees doesn't have its own credit union, and Craven doesn't have its own credit union. Would you extend? So we now cover the corridor from Huddersfield right up to Skipton. So anybody living in Kirklees, Bradford or Craven is able to access the credit union. What's interesting is we look at the membership growth. Up until 2016, we had 3,000 members. We've just gone past 10,500 members. We're well on our way to 11,000 members. So adding about 8,000 people in as many years. We help roughly about 3,000 people that are financially excluded, people that couldn't get a loan from anywhere else, couldn't get banking from anywhere else. And we help those people through the credit union, but we're also faith friendly. And that means because we don't pay interest on our savings, because as a cooperative, we give any profit made by the business back to the members, because we are not for profit cooperative. That means that people from an Islamic background who wouldn't normally take interest through their banking if they can help it, can save ethically with the credit union, because we pay a dividend and we don't pay a interest. And in fact, just this year, we're giving £97,000 back in dividends to our members. So how much do you think 10,500 people might save? Most people guess anywhere between 100,000 and £1 million. Well, I'm really glad you're sitting down today, because we look after a staggering £6.5 million for 10,500 members, something we're extremely proud of. We couldn't do what we do without our workforce payroll savings. So Kirklees Council, Bradford Council, and 34 companies in total save with us through their staff. And that's about 4,000 staff in total. They save about 3.6 million and borrow 2.4 million. And that's really, really important, because we find that the people that are working can't necessarily afford to save or have high borrowing. So through the credit union, people get into a savings habit because their savings directly come out of their wages, and therefore they don't really miss it. These are some of the companies that we work with. And then we have our partners. We have partnered with the Money and Pension Service, and I would recommend anybody who's concerned about their pension. Many people these days have a lot of pension pots behind them, to pop on the Money and Pension Service to their Money Helper. You'll find all sorts of information there to do with pensions, to do with benefits, and other forms of financial help. We work very closely with them. We do some webinars. We're looking at a webinar now that's going to be looking at pensions with them and in due course, and we'll let you know about that. We work with NECTA, the Gambling Association based in Harrogate. Very, very important. We see a lot of people coming through the credit union applying for loans where they've got very high and unsustainable gambling habits, and we're able to work and help with that. Mind in Bradford is a major company that we work with. Mental health and finances are intertwined. Either money is the root cause of mental health, or mental health is the root cause of money problems. So by working with them, we're able to help an awful lot of people through that. And then we work with the Stop Loan Shark team. This is the illegal money lending team based in Birmingham. It's a government-backed organisation that helps to bring loan sharks to justice. And in just a few months ago, some intelligence that we get through our members brought a loan shark that was working in Bradford to justice. And then finally, Bradford BD25. We do a lot of work with them. We're an official partner, and we do some of our Money SOS training, which I'll talk about just shortly, because the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning is our projects. And this is really what sets us apart from other credit unions, because we have moved our credit union to be into the community development space. And this is something that we excel at and where a lot of our membership comes from. So the first thing to note is our Money SOS workshop. Because I was in banking for 7 years, I came to understand some of these issues that people don't understand about how money works, what I call the mechanics of money. So if you look at APR, annual percentage rate, payday loans and loan sharks, contactless, the contactless in your pocket is a driver to get people into overdrafts, because banks make more money off overdrafts than they do off credit cards. So I explain all about overdrafts, and then finally how to build your credit score. Credit score is absolutely vital in anything you want to do financially in this country, whether it's from a car loan to a mortgage or even renting these days. So I talk a lot about and unpack how that actually works. Let's go back to APR just for a moment. If you can imagine, your average bank lends between 6 and 20% based on your credit rating. It's estimated that roughly only 40% of the UK population can access those banking rates. That means 60% are going to go somewhere else because they don't have high enough credit score to get these sort of loans. And that's an estimate. So 60% are going to go somewhere else. One of the cheapest loans they can get outside of bank would be a payday lender. My apologies, a doorstep lender that comes round door to door offering people loans. Those lenders start at a staggering 275% APR. And to borrow £500 at 275% APR over just 1 year is £410 of interest. There's a £910 loan for just £500 over just 1 year. And that gives you an idea of what people are facing out there if they don't have credit scores high enough. So if anybody is interested in a Money SOS course, I do this as a train the trainer, and people can contact me. We also have now a radio show called the Money SOS radio show on BCB radio. These are some of the things we've been able to do. We've been training the BD25 City of Culture apprentices, and we do them out in the community. and some of these photos that are linked in. We also do a lot of work with the Americans. In America, credit unions are much bigger than they are in the UK. In fact, 1 in 4 people is a credit union member in the USA. And they have the ability to get money for community development projects, but aren't necessarily seeing the impact that we're seeing here in the UK. I've been sponsored twice to go out to America, to go and speak to various groups, the latter being the World Council of Credit Unions, to talk about the work that we do here in Bradford, and being able to show that on a very small amount of money, the impact that we're able to get from that. These are some of the photos that we've had. These are mostly pre-pandemic. And then coming on to our flagship project that we work with in tandem with In Churches. So if anybody's heard of Julie Thompson, a wonderful woman from the community that I do a lot of work with, she had the idea of, first of all, winter shelters. That's why she started In Churches, using places of worship as places of sanctuary for people to go if they were homeless over winter time. She came to me during the pandemic with the idea of being able to turn community centres into hubs where they could get food from them. So unlike food banks, where food is free and they're given food that is a set products, Food Savers is meant to give you a corner shop experience where you can choose the food that you want, put it into a bag, and an average shop that's worth £30, you pay £6 towards, and £1 goes into the credit union. Well, we've seen a great behaviour change through this programme, and people are able to save a lot more than that because they bring the money that's under the mattress, around shoe boxes, and they bring it down to the credit union because they found a trusted place to put that. So we now have 21 pantries across Bradford, 700 savers saving a staggering £52,000. And In Churches are working with other areas in West Yorkshire for a West Yorkshire rollout, and there's been interest nationally too. For any information on that, do go to the In Churches or Food Savers website, where you can get some more information on that. Then working with the West Yorkshire Mayor, Tracy Braben, we had 2 different projects. One was about microloans. I just talked about credit score. There's a certain credit score that even credit unions can't lend to people below a certain credit score because we're putting members' money at risk. And in conversation with her office, we came up with an idea of being able to lend to people that are considered to be high risk with just £200, and they have this a loan over a year in which they pay back, and this would help to restore their credit score. And over 300 people went through this program, and we expected that 60% would not pay back their loan because they had a history of not doing so, and we actually only found that only 19% didn't pay back their loan. So given the chance, these people were able to get into a position where they were able to pay their loans back, and they were able to increase their credit score. The other thing that we had was Uniform Savers 3 to help people save for their school uniforms. That was with the Bradford Council. And the idea was that people could go down to Britannia House or Keighley Town Hall, where the council was, and then join up on a savings programme where they saved £30, 3 times £10, and the council would give them £100 incentive for doing so, which they could then put towards school uniform. And again, that's been a very, very popular programme in the past. Just summing up what the credit union is, so it's starting a savings habit. It is the internet, the smartphone banking. We have the same-day withdrawals through your bank, through our app, access to affordable loans that are paid back either by standing order or through payroll, and all our loans are build credit scores alongside our savings. We have a Christmas Savers budgeting account, a Junior Savers to save on behalf of a child or grandchild. These are faith-friendly, so people from a Muslim background can save ethically, and we are an ethical banking that supports the community. The Money SOS workshops and the money tips on our website, as well as the regular newsletter, and staff and loan offers for our members. If anybody is interested in joining the credit union, which I hope that you are, if you're living or working in Kirklees, Bradford or Craven, please do go onto our website, www.bdc.co.uk, hit that join button and go through the process with that. If you're one of our payroll partners, such as Bradford Council, Kirklees Council, do have your payroll number with you. Otherwise, if you have your driver's license or passport and your debit card, the first £5 gets taken in order for your savings, which proves your address, and you're able to join the credit union. We hope you do. Your savings enable us to help people in the community. And that's my details that will be sent out for that. So just in the back there, returning back.
Thank you, Ian.
No problem at all.
Thank you. That's very, very helpful. So as I said at the beginning, everyone, 10 to 2, we're going to have a quick comfort break. So that's 1 minute. And then if we come back for 2 o'clock, then we will be covering NHS Scams, we'll be covering AI, and also around what they're doing in Kirklees around building digital confidence. So please come back and join us then. And we'll see you at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you managed to grab yourself a cuppa, have a little bit of a walk around the garden if the sun's shining where you are, and that you're all ready for us to continue with this exciting webinar to help you understand a little bit more about being safe online and some of the challenges that you find in relation to AI and NHS. So, our next speaker is Lauren May, and she is the Digital Inclusion Lead at Kirklees Council, and she's going to be talking to you about building digital confidence and the work that's been done in Kirklees. So, Lauren, if you're there, can you join us and give us an overview as to what you've been doing? Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Sharon. I am here, but I'm masquerading as Ian Brewer because we, as ever, are having digital problems. I don't think I've ever been to a digital seminar or webinar where somebody hasn't, had a bit of a tech problem. And today that's me, so thank you. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen now. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about what we do in Kirklees, how we build digital confidence and our digital offer. So I'm going to start by talking about the scale of potential digital exclusion. And the reason I usually start here is because I think some of the statistics actually shock people. Most of us now, as particularly if you're engaging in a webinar like this, you've got an email address, you probably use, your computer a lot for work, you'll have devices at home, you will be what we consider digitally included. And I think when you surround yourself in that landscape, you don't often realise that quite a large percentage of people are digitally excluded still. And it's not something that is easily measured, digital exclusion. It's not static, so it moves. And one of the things I always say to people is, you can have a laptop and be digitally included and you're able to use it, but then if that gets broken or stolen, the next day that you might not be digitally included anymore if that was your only, piece of equipment that you managed to get online with. So the figures do shift, but we've just got a bit of an overview here of some statistics that do heavily influence digital inclusion. So in Kirklees, 8,600 people are unemployed. Poverty affects 1 in 3 households, and nearly 79,000 people in Kirklees are aged 65 or over. 75,591 people in Kirklees have a disability, and 731 people in Kirklees are experiencing homelessness. And actually, these statistics are probably slightly more bleak now because these were taken at the last census, and I don't think we were as deep into the sort of credit crunch and cost of living crisis. So it probably looks a little bit worse than this. And the reason that I've included these statistics is because all of these sort of barriers shape quite heavily how digitally included or excluded somebody is. And sadly, on the flip side of that, for everybody experiencing one of these barriers, it would massively benefit them if they were able to become more digitally included. An example I always give is if you are, one of the households that are affected by poverty, imagine that you have got your recent benefit payment and you go to the supermarket and you walk around the supermarket and you're doing your shopping and you've got to add all of that up manually. You get to the till, you don't know how much it's going to be. Have you got enough? You've got the embarrassment of people standing behind you and saying, oh, please, can you stop it there? Taking things back out. If you were digitally included and you were able to do your shopping online, you've got a much sort of stronger sense of control over how much you're spending. Are there any offers on? Same with if you've got a disability, you're not having to carry those bags back. So in Kirklees, we're certainly not here to, enforce, oh, everybody has to go 100% digital. But what we do want is to give people that choice and to make sure that if they fancy a walk down to the supermarket, fantastic, pop in, but also do you have the skills, the confidence, the motivation, the connectivity and the equipment to be able to do that online if it would make your life easier. So what do we offer? One of the main things that we've got in Kirklees is 8 digital hubs, and they are across both North and South Kirklees. I'm sure most of you know, but it's a really big area, Kirklees, geographically, with all different types of communities. And, we've got rural areas, town centres. It's very different. So our hubs are placed right across those, and then people are not having to travel. They can just pop into, a local library and make things a little bit easier for themselves. We have a digital inclusion network, which has got well over 100 members now, and that is all of our partners. And they, you can learn more about what other people are offering, and basically provide solutions, talk about, courses, are there any gaps? And that's, it's an open network. We welcome new members if people would like to join. We support people with equipment, connectivity, motivation, and confidence. And we offer digital courses through our adult learning provision as well. So people aren't always ready to come straight into a course, but what we hope to do through our digital hubs and cafes is introduce them to, equipment. And then from there, they might decide, oh, actually, I quite like this and I'd like to do, a qualification or something a bit more formal. And then we also provide free training sessions on digital trends such as AI and digital marketing, and that's for our partners, and those are usually really well attended as well. We do like to keep our finger on the digital pulse in Kirklees. So more on digital hubs. It's a local community-based centre that offers a range of fully funded support services to help people with their digital inclusion journey. And I know quite a lot of our hubs will probably be listening today, so hello and thank you for all the great work that you're doing. They provide access to equipment and technology such as Chromebooks, smartphones, tablets. People can bring their own things in. We do often loan equipment out as well for people who want to use them. There's access to the internet and data. We provide SIMs for those experiencing data poverty. Opportunities to learn and digitally upskill through community courses. Engaging with the digitally reluctant in a supportive environment. Again, we're not here to just come straight in and be like, right, get on the computer, sign yourself up for an email. It is done in a very supportive fashion. Green hubs, where we recycle unwanted tech. We're doing a big piece of work at the moment, actually, with Kirklees Councils ex-staff laptops, where we're trying to put those back into the community because we don't want them to go to landfill. And then the digital cafes, which are a safe space to try out new digital skills. And quite often we do a bit of a focus. So, for example, we've done things around like NHS patches, where people can come in and register for that. And we'll support them through that process. So I've just given a really brief whistle-stop tour. We do absolutely loads, and we've got our finger in many digital pies. So if you would like to find out more, please do contact me, and I will be sticking around for the chat afterwards. And I will also be on BCB Radio with Ian Brewer discussing the session afterwards. Happy Safer Internet Day, everybody. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Lauren. There's some great work happening there, and I know that is appreciated by the people in your communities, and given resource challenges that everybody has, I know it is a difficult thing to be able to deliver. So it's really great to see that's what's happened. So thank you. Okay, so I'd like to hand over now to Rosie Dickinson, who'll talk to you about recognising NHS scams. Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you very much. I'm hoping the slides have now appeared and you can all see them. Thank you so much for coming along this afternoon, and massive thank you to everyone who has set up the event as well. I really appreciate being invited. Just to introduce myself, my name's Rosie Dickinson and I am a local counter-fraud specialist, it's a bit of a mouthful, and I work across a number of different NHS services in Yorkshire. That includes West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board, who'd put me forward as a potential speaker today. So my day job is actually usually to investigate allegations of fraud against the NHS, but I am very aware that the NHS is also impersonated. So we might get fraudsters coming and targeting members of the public pretending to be from the NHS. And as it's a service that so many people access and lots of people use it, that puts it on the radar for these fraudsters, particularly cyber fraudsters. So I'm going to take you through some of the most common NHS-themed scams, things that I'm quite keenly aware of, and for you to look out for and how you can avoid them. So this first one, it might be something that's already on your radar. There was quite a lot of press coverage around it in the last couple of months. And what's happened is there's been fake posts being set up on social media, offering people the chance to sign up with what's claimed to be a new local dental practice. And they're very much capitalising on how difficult it can be to get an NHS dental place. So these fraudsters have used places like Facebook. They've set up a fake profile that they've populated with lots of information and imagery, making it look like they are a genuine dental practice. They then target local community groups, get their posts in there saying that it's in the local area and encouraging people to sign up. To sign up, you would have to click on a link that they've put on the Facebook page, and that would then take you onto a phishing website. We do know that the phishing websites that have been put together are very convincing. They're really professional looking, lots of really fancy imagery. And it's been established that some of the content that they're using to populate these websites is actually lifted directly from genuine dentist websites. So they're going on, picking the information off, and then just copying and pasting it onto the fake site. In some cases, we're also aware that they're taking the names and identities of genuine dentists and then listing them as if they are employees. So the sting in the tail with this, you think you're hopefully going to get an NHS place with a new dentist. If you were to click the link and register, they'll then ask you for a payment to confirm your place at the new dentist. A lot of people are very desperate and really keen to get seen by somebody, and unfortunately therefore they are being tricked into making that payment, thinking that they're dealing with a new NHS dentist. So how to avoid this? First and foremost, if you are looking for an NHS dentist, there is the official website, the NHS Find a Dentist Register. So if you go to the website on screen, and don't worry about jotting this down because it will be in the recording, you can look on that database, find a local dentist, find out who's taking on NHS patients, and get registered without having to make one of those upfront payments. We advise you to be really wary of posts that are made on social media. As you've probably picked up through the rest of the content on this presentation, what you come across online isn't necessarily going to be true. And places like Facebook in particular, the posts that are made on there are not necessarily vetted. It's very easy for a fraudster to set up a fake profile, populate that with stolen information, and make themselves look quite legitimate. What we'll find as well with these, sometimes the posts that they put out, there won't be an ability to put comments on there. And what they don't want is for people using that platform to be warning each other that actually this is a scam. So that's something else to be cautious of. If the comments are turned off, that can be a sign that the content isn't necessarily safe. As with all scam advice, we do say that, if it looks too good to be true, then it probably is. So just be really careful. If you do click on a link and you then get asked for personal or financial information, stop and take 5 at that point. Always have a mindset that, is this possibly a scam? Is it possible that somebody's trying to get this information and they're not genuinely who they're pretending to be? You can also think about if you've got any alternative routes to take. So in this example, you've got the NHS Find a Dentist service, and also think about who you can get advice from. So it could be friends, your family, it could be speaking to your bank if somebody's asking you for financial information. It could be going to places like Citizens Advice. So our next fraud methodology is the text message scam. And during the pandemic, this was incredibly prolific. And the example I've popped on screen is one that was circulated during COVID. And the reason I've chosen this one, even though it is a few years old now, is because you can see some of the tactics that fraudsters use to sort of make themselves look more legitimate. Firstly, you might be able to see that underneath the profile icon, where you might normally see somebody's phone number, or if you'd saved them as a contact in your phone, this simply says trace alerts. So what is happening here is that the fraudster is using a tool that we call spoofing. Spoofing tools let fraudsters overtype their phone number or contact information with anything of their choosing. So it could be in a different methodology that they might type HSBC Bank in there, or they might put the phone number of your bank's customer services into that field so that when the message lands with you, it looks legitimate. Secondly, you can see at the very start of this text message, they've started that with the name of the organisation they're trying to pretend to be. So here it's NHS. Next, they've added a link, and as you can see, we've blurred it out because it's a dodgy link and we don't want anybody typing it in anywhere. But you can hopefully see that at a couple of different places within that link, the letters NHS have been used. And again, this is just to make it look more authentic and realistic. In this particular example, this was all about ordering a test kit. So they're trying to prompt a payment in response to, well, they've tried to panic you here by saying you've been in close contact with somebody. Although COVID isn't a hot topic for fraudsters at the minute, there's every opportunity that they will recycle this methodology and just tweak it a little bit. So instead of COVID, they might say it's to do with a flu jab or a shingles jab, or to confirm an appointment that you may or may not have made. So the nasty part of this scam actually comes after you click on the link. So if you were to click this link, you will land on a website that probably looks a little something like this. So what we've got here is something that the fraudster has put together, and it has quite an authentic look to it. So they've stolen NHS branding, they've used the right colours, they've used the right fonts, they've designed it very much after how an NHS website would usually look. And in this case, they're trying to get somebody to pay for postage for a PCR test. So they're asking for the person's name, card number, card details, and the next page of this would be their address because they're alleging they're going to send something through the post. What actually happens after this form has been filled in is that the fraudster has now got hold of the person's name and address. They've already got their phone number. So maybe a few days later, maybe it'll be a week later, that person will get a phone call, and that phone call will be from somebody pretending to be from their bank's fraud team. They'll probably go along the lines of saying, we think something's compromised your bank account. We suspect maybe you've fallen for a text message scam. Has anything unusual come in recently? They know exactly that that has happened because they were the ones behind it. So at this point, the person who's taken the phone call is starting to panic, not necessarily thinking suspiciously, more thinking, oh, crikey, what's happened here? And the person on the call will be very well practiced. They'll have a script to work from, and they will start making noises about, well, we can't secure your account. There's nothing we can do. The only thing we can suggest is that we move your money into a safe account that we'll set up. And the safe account actually belongs to the fraudster. This particular methodology was used very successfully during the pandemic, and there were examples of NHS nurses who were stung by this and lost all their savings. So even if you do work in the NHS, it can be hard to see the wood for the trees when the scams are this sophisticated. So moving on to email scams. So I have actually recently had a scam email that came through pretending to be from the NHS. It offered me a repeat prescription service. I was fortunately quite able to pick that out quickly and to disregard it. I don't have any repeat prescriptions, so for me that wasn't a good fraud attempt. It didn't, hit a nerve with me, and I thought, well, this is just nonsense. And it also came from a non-official NHS email account, so easily discarded. However, if you do receive repeat prescriptions, there is a potential that that sort of methodology might work quite well. So with the text messages, these emails will almost often contain a link. So what they're hoping for is that you will click a link, end up on a phishing website, and then hand over your details. So some warning signs to look out for on these. Firstly, is to look at the sender's information. So NHS emails should ideally come from @nhs.net email accounts. However, I have to give you a proviso that that's not necessarily a fail-safe. Unfortunately, sometimes NHS email accounts do get hijacked. So even if the email address looks correct, you still need to be really cautious. With the example of the repeat prescriptions email that I got, that was unexpected for me. So you might find that you are approached about something that isn't relevant to you. It could be to do with prescriptions. It could be an invite for a shingles jab when you're not in the eligible criteria for that. It could be coming from an NHS body that's a long way away from you. So a GP practice in Scotland or an NHS trust from London, and you don't live in those areas. If it isn't a local service, then I'd say that alarm bells should really be going off. As I mentioned, there's likely to be a link within these emails, so just be wary of those. And if you do land on a website as a result of clicking the link, it's likely that there's going to be a request for personal information and/or a payment. So the advice for emails and texts is fairly similar, so I've grouped them together here. The first thing to be wary of is clicking on links. You've probably heard that advice a million times, but my approach to these kinds of things is always to take the long way round. So rather than clicking on the link within the email, I'll always think, well, which organisation is it? How can I get in touch with them directly? So for NHS themed things, you might be able to call the hospital, the dentist, or the GP directly and check whether the message is genuine. If you use the NHS app, that can also be a really useful way to double check whether you've had an appointment invite or if there's anything new on your medical notes. As I said earlier as well, if you're asked for personal information or financial details, please stop and start the process of double checking or getting some advice. Citizens Advice, I think I mentioned them briefly earlier, they have some really excellent support materials on their website. You can also call them, you can talk to them on their web chat, or you can visit their in-person services. Next, I wanted to move on to scam calls. So we've had a few reports through from the Counter Fraud Service in Scotland and also from counterparts in the London area. And what's happened is members of the public have received cold calls from people that claim that they're ringing from the NHS. So the caller will usually ask for personal details at the beginning of the call and then move on to trying to sell medication, vitamin supplements, or other well-being items. The caller is always very vague about where they're calling from. All they'll say is, oh, it's the NHS. And if they're really pushed to say, well, which department, they will either become quite hostile or they'll simply hang up and end the call. So at the moment, as we know, there's a lot of people on waiting lists. This is quite a decent methodology for a fraudster to use, unfortunately. It's quite safe for them and people may go through that first bit of the call because they are actually expecting to hear from somebody. Please remember as well, we already talked about spoofing. So when I talked about the text messages and the way that fraudsters paste different information over their phone number, that same methodology can be used for phone calls. So the number that comes up on your call display screen isn't necessarily true. It's not necessarily factual. The fraudster might be hiding behind a fake number. There's also a type of software that some of these fraudsters use, especially when they're using this sort of methodology, which is called a jammer. So if you hang up the call and you end that phone call, you think that that's the end of it. You go straight to your phone and you decide you're going to call your bank because you're a bit worried about this conversation you've just had. What the fraudster might have done in that time period is to jam your line. So although you think you've hung up, they will actually just reconnect you to one of their colleagues when you go to make another call. And unfortunately, quite often where these are organised crime groups, they will be working within call centres and places that are legitimate or seem legitimate, and they can easily transfer you between their colleagues. So with these phone calls, if you're in doubt, please don't confirm or share your personal information. And particularly with the NHS, it's incredibly unlikely that somebody's going to call you and start asking for payment information over the phone. That would be a huge red flag. So please end the call at that point and get some advice. Again, if the person calls and they say they're calling from your GP practice or from the local hospital, take a note of that, end the call, and then you can either wait for 15 minutes, and that should then hopefully clear your line of any call jammers, or you can use a different handset. So if you've got a landline or a mobile that you can swap over to and use that to contact the NHS service that was apparently trying to speak to you. Please remember, we don't go around ringing people asking for money over the phone, and if you are being asked for payment details, you do need to end the call immediately. So finally, I just wanted to touch on to artificial intelligence very quickly, as I know Kirsty's going to be talking about that shortly. And I know that people are quite worried about AI. And from a fraud perspective, I'm quite conscious of the fact that it is already being misused by criminals. Unfortunately, whenever we get any new technology, it's only a matter of time before a criminal will look for a way that they can misuse it. And we know that that's happening with AI. We know that this is sort of feeding into deep fakes and using things like ChatGPT for phishing emails and things like that. We know that's very true. However, I did just want to speak on its behalf a little bit. From an NHS perspective, there's been some really amazing outcomes from using AI. So I just wanted to highlight that it's not all bad, nor is it all good. It's somewhere in the middle. And I just wanted to throw up a few of the headlines here that show some of the really incredible things that it has done. So please, although we want you to be cautious, it's also about keeping that open mind and remembering that there are advantages as well. Then very, very finally, I just wanted to pop a slide up that would explain how to report NHS fraud concerns. As I mentioned at the start, my general day-to-day work is looking at fraud against the NHS. So if you think that a fraud is taking place and the NHS is the victim, you can contact the NHS Counter Fraud Authority. They have a 24/7 hotline, and they also have an online reporting tool that you can use. It could be NHS fraud anywhere in the country. If you report it to the NHS Counter Fraud Authority, they will then pass that information across to the local counter fraud specialist for that particular service. If you've come across a fraud that is targeting a member of the public, then please report it to Action Fraud. And if you think that you have lost money to a scam, please let your bank know as soon as possible. There is an opportunity. They may be able to freeze the payment. They might be able to take steps to recover it, and they may be able to help you get your money back as well. So that's important to know. So that is everything. I appreciate I've talked a million miles an hour. I will be here for the Q&A as well. So if anybody has any questions, I'll pick them up there. But otherwise, I'll hand back.
Thank you, Rosie. That's great. Thank you very much indeed. And I think it's very relevant at the moment, given that there is a lot of conversation in the press about the NHS app and how they're wanting people to utilise the NHS app. Therefore, potentially, there's an opportunity for fraudulent organisations to pick up on that. So it's great that we've now got the tips and techniques to be able to identify that. So, following on from that AI brief touch at the end there, our next speaker is Kirsty Ingleson, who's going to talk to you about AI. So over to you, Kirsty.
Thank you so much. Right, let me just make sure this is working all right. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, but it's small. That's it. That's fine.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
Would you do me a favour, Sharon, when I'm coming close to time, would you raise your hand so I get a notification to wind up?
I will indeed. I'll raise it politely.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me, everyone. I've been looking forward to this all day. So I'm Kirsty Ingleson. I work at Kirklees College and I am the Digital Innovation Manager, and I drive our college forward using AI for good. As Rosie said, there are lots of goods. And AI is a term that's flashing around. It's in the press, it's on the TV, it's on the radio, and I'm not sure that there's many resources that people can tap into to find out exactly what it is. So I've not got long, but I'm hoping that I can do it justice, just to give you a snapshot. And what I want to say is that I love a bit of interaction. Bob some questions, anything that comes to mind. No question is a silly question. Please keep it really interactive, because it's so boring to just sit here and listen to me. Okay, so what is AI then? AI is artificial intelligence, and it refers to the intelligence of machines, okay? It's giving a computer the ability to learn and make decisions like humans do. So it uses data to recognise patterns, make predictions, and problem solve. So just a brief example of this is we might load different pictures into a computer, some of cats and some of dogs, and we will label the cat ones as cat and the dog ones as dog, so that we are training that computer to start to recognize this pet is a cat, this pet is a dog. And AI then can recognize what these pictures are, whether it is a cat or a dog, and categorize them. So the computer learns to recognize patterns, and at the heart of it, that's all AI is. It's predictions and it's patterns. And it's most definitely not new to us. It's been in our lives for years. There are different types of AI, but the umbrella of AI that we're discussing throughout this session today for the AI beginners, it's been around us for years. So sat-nav, does anyone use the sat-nav? Just gonna get the chat up on my phone so I can see if anything's rolling in.
There's nothing in chat at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, don't be scared, it's interactive, put anything on there. So the sat-nav will reroute you if there's a quicker route, if traffic is building up. That is an example of artificial intelligence. Face recognition on our phones. I don't know about anyone else, sometimes I open mine for Face ID and it says face not recognised. I have the same face today as I had when I set that up, but sometimes it will come up with an error, and that's just when AI fails, and AI can fail. Alexa, really good example of AI, again, predicting from our commands, it predicts what we might want to see or hear. And predictive text is such a good example to understand AI. So if you got your phone out and started typing a text, now on smartphones, it comes up with the words that you might usually say. So if I went on my phone and started typing I, some of the options that might come up underneath are love you. So it's learning that these are some of the things that I say, and it's suggesting maybe you want to put this because this is what you usually put. So that's a really good example of predictions. Also, I put the caravan on there. Just a bit of a funny story, really. About 6 years ago, me and my husband went to view a caravan. And for years after that, every advert that we saw on our phone or our devices were around reduced site fees, furniture for the caravan, yeah, lots of caravan sales, and that were just from one viewing. So it predicts our interests. I also bought some nail varnish for my daughter the other day on Amazon, and then things kept coming up like, are you interested in nail file? So that were predicting that, oh, I'm interested in nails, I bought the nail varnish, maybe I'm interested in the full package. So it is an algorithm, and I'm sure that you can all relate to times where you've either spoke about something with your friend or you've searched for something with your family, and then that's all you seem to see kind of in your face on socials and on your phone. So there are some great things to do with AI. If we're mindful about some of the other things that we'll come on to, AI is pretty life-changing. So there are some examples of generative AI. So that's some AI that will create new content for us. And here are some examples that I have used and that we use at college. So Claude AI, Ugl'AI, which is a fantastic song-making AI tool. So you can put your lyrics in and it will create your lovely song. You can have lots of different genres. So that's quite a fun, creative thing to do. ChatGPT, which lots of people seem to be trying out and having a go of. And more recently, Google's Notebook LM. And some people have not used AI before. Maybe you've not seen it in action. So what I thought I'd do is show you, here's a prompt that I created earlier. I thought I could show you it in action. So when you log in to ChatGPT, this is how it looks. And you can ask anything. It's an Ask Me Anything thing platform. So I've just copy and pasted something from earlier. Create me a meal plan for the next 7 days. So I'm hoping everyone can see that because I can't see in the chat.
Yes, it's on the screen, Kirsty.
Okay. So it's interacting with me now. So it's asking me if I've got any dietary preferences or restrictions. For now, I'm going to say no. So as you can see, pretty instantly, it's pulling sources from the internet, from books, from journals, from magazines, anything that's out there available on the internet. It's pulling to create me a meal plan. This is great, by the way. If you don't know what to make for tea, get on ChatGPT, have a little go. It will give you some ideas. So it's coming up with these ideas, which is great, but you can continue to manipulate this output. So again, earlier on, I typed up something else. I've told AI now, you are a nutrition specialist. I want you to create me a meal plan that keeps me within 1,800 calories a day. I do not like lamb or cauliflower. So if we put that in, it will recreate it based on our needs. So it's not a finished product, and you can continue to manipulate that information. And if there was something you didn't like, you could say, actually, I don't like this, take it off the whole meal plan, and it will continue to work for you. So put meal plans in there, because it's always difficult for me to think about what I'm going to have for my tea. I never know. But also just an educational example here. My son needs to know about metaphors. I don't know enough, so I need you to help me. He likes cars. Can you use this to create me some learning materials? He's 15 and studying for his GCSEs. I'm just going to put in the UK. I'm just going to stop it doing its work in background on the meal plan, because I'm pretty sure I don't need all that. So it's using cars as an explanation. Sometimes my kids come home to me and they tell me what they're learning, or what they've got to do for school, and sometimes I really don't know where to start. I'm in education myself. My daughter in primary, sometimes I ain't got a clue. So we train some AI, we put a face on it, it's our homework assistant. We don't put any of our personal data in there, but as you can see very quickly, he's running on empty. She's put the brakes on their plans. We said that the son was interested in cars. So it's great to personalise learning. It's great to personalise anything for yourself. So if you haven't had a go, I recommend signing up on the free version. Don't share any of your personal data, and have a go and see what it's capable of. So there is some AI for good. And there is some AI for not so good. So we're just going to have a little task now, and I can't see the chat, but I'm hoping if people bob in, it'll come up on my phone. I'd like you to put in the chat whether you think that this image is real or fake. So just comment with either one of those words. When I see a few rolling in, I'll know that people can see it.
It'd be great if some of our people who've joined us could put their messages in the chat, because so far I've got responses from colleagues who've presented. So if others could put their thoughts in the chat, that'd be great. Thank you.
That would be great. Thank you so much. So we've got fake, fake, fake so far. Lauren says real. And we're just presenters, but I think everyone should have access to the chat. So you should be able to.
Some people have put things in the Q&A section. So Joanne and Debbie and have put fake in there.
Great. Okay, thank you. So this image is a real image. Let's try the next one. I appreciate that's a little bit blurry. Real or fake for this one?
So we've got some people who think it's real and some who think it's fake.
Great, I've seen some real in the chat. This one is a fake image. It's used AI to create this particular image. And this image, do we think that this is a real image or do we think it's a fake image? Great, I can see Danielle. She thinks it's real.
I'm just checking Q&A to see if anybody's put anything in there. Yeah, hang on.
Great, I can
Yeah.
see someone else.
Real, fake.
Great, thank you. Okay, this is a fake image. It's an AI created image. And one thing that you can look out for to spot this, if you take a closer look at her fingers, AI is not great at fingers. You can see the little finger has no nail attached, and the second finger after that is a little bit wider and a bit funny looking. So AI is not great with hands and it's not great with toes. So there are some subtle things that you can look for. And then this one. Is this real or is it fake? Bit of doggy parachute in there. Let me get to chat. What do people think? I can see some people typing.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see anything on Q&A, Sharon?
Yes, some people are saying fake.
Yeah.
I said real because I thought it was so wild it might be real.
This is fake. I do remember viewing it and thinking, wow, I could never let my little doggy jump out of a plane. And then I thought, Kirsty, come on, think about it. That wouldn't be allowed. So I looked into it and yes, it's a fake video. So as you can see, things can be generated with AI that look real, but might not be. So there are some things that we should be aware of. AI is getting better. It's not great. It's not where we need it right now. If you think back to the internet, I don't know if anyone remembers Ask Jeeves. I remember being really young, thinking that Ask Jeeves were amazing. It took forever to answer questions. It wasn't always great answers, and the expectations that we had of the internet back in the Ask Jeeves days were massive, but it's only just meeting the expectations right now. And we're a bit like that with AI at the moment. So it's growing. It's not perfect. It's not great just yet. But there are some things that it can do. Voice training, for example. There is software I can speak into for 15 seconds only, and then it will be trained on my voice. Then I could type some words, an essay, an assignment, a conversation into this software, and it would read them in my voice, okay? So this leans into the scam side of things. If you've ever got a message out of the blue, even if it's a voice note on WhatsApp from a family member, I would always see that family member in person before you take it as gospel, because voice training is getting better. Your data, just to quickly touch on, don't put any of your personal data into any AI system, even if you pay for it. I pay for multiple AI systems, and I don't share any personal data, any of our staff's personal data or students. So it's a great tool to have a play about with, but nothing to identify yourself should go in there. No one can guarantee that that information is safe. Also, it's important to be aware of bias. The data in AI, especially ChatGPT, in the early days were trained by middle-aged men. So there is bias in the data, and AI can get things wrong. So always check your responses and then go read further if you're still not sure. So our future looks quite different with AI. AI is a skill and it's available for everyone. It's ours for the taking. You don't need to be tech savvy. You don't need to be great at computers. Everyone can and should get stuck in and have a go. People are looking for it on CVs now, and you stand apart from others if you can say, actually, I can use AI. It can really support you with your well-being and streamline admin tasks. Yes, so I just wanted to touch on there. Oh, it's left me now. It's left me. Anyway, so yes, our future does look different. It's impacting education. It's impacting future jobs. Thank you so much for listening. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, on TikTok, and I have a Facebook page. I've very originally named myself AI with KI because my surname is Ingleson. So please reach out to me, and I'm going to shut up now because I'm hoping we have some questions and some interaction from the audience. Thank you, Sharon.